Hi folks, this is Lola and Shafa again. Today I wanted to kind of, touch on a particular topic that seems to be a theme I've been seeing in many things going on right now. I just have a tendency to kind of, follow up with, pop culture, what's going on, what's being reported, what people are talking about. And I've kind of been hearing different things. I probably won't kind of talk on these things now because they're not substantiated. They haven't been confirmed. They're maybe just rumors until the parties involved have confirmed them. But then it just kind of comes to make me think. And what's this forgiveness? Forgiveness is such a broad topic, and such means different things to many people. But I went through the liberty of coming up with it. Not coming up. I didn't make it up myself. I kind of researched and I found a definition that I felt kind of fit in, and so I'm going to kind of read it to you and you kind of see how you think about it. So I have it as a definition that forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance to a person who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve it. And I think that it's key right there, regardless of whether they actually deserve it. There's this misconception we have when we speak of forgiveness that makes us think that us forgiving somebody else is for them. I'm going to start at the top of the video and I'm probably going to end the end of the video with saying forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. Forgiveness does not mean that you've now given them permission to do it again. Forgiveness does not mean that you now validate it and say, yeah, you're cool. I'm a doormat. You're going to slap me here and slap me there. No, it doesn't mean that. But it means that you are saying, I'm not going to allow this person to live in my head rent free. I'm not going to carry this baggage around with me. And so, and there are different things we can think of. I'll start at the top. We'll talk about when we read the Bible. There are a million passages. Well, probably not a million. I'm exaggerating slightly, as you can see. But there are quite a few passages that make reference to forgiveness. I'm going to mention just two of them. Okay, bear with me. First one, Ephesians 4:32. And Ephesians 4:32 says, instead, be kind to each other, forgiving one another just as God through Christ has forgiven you. So if God has forgiven you for all the crap you've done, what makes you so great and mighty that you can't forgive someone for what they've done, up and including to death? And then the second thing, you're like, well, you know what? I forgave this person that time. Because sometimes somebody might continuously do something to you, offend you, maybe the same way continuously. You forgiving them doesn't mean you have to let them in your space. It just means you've released them from your mind. There's another passage I want to address there that says there. So we're talking about Matthew 18. It's going to be verse 21 and 22. Peter came to him and asked, Lord, so he's asking, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? So by the 8th time, I tell them, like, you know what? Shit done to me. Dead. Jump into hell. No. Verse 22 answers and says, no, not 7 times. Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. Yo, he's talking about infinity. So what the Lord wants us to do is, and this is a loose translation, and of course everybody kind of has their own interpretation of what it is like someone offends you. And it's not just once, let's say once, you can't forgive them, then you are more or less kind of wearing that weight on yourself. Now you have someone, you could talk about in a marriage who's offended you, and they keep doing these things over and over and over again. And you could talk about infidelity. I recently just kind of, reviewed, the Love and Marriage Huntsville. And we'll talk about the Mela Martell situation. Can she forgive him? By all means, forgive him. She herself has said there was a point where she actually had some pity for him because he realized he'd lost a good thing. Go ahead, sis. But you can forgive. But like I said, it doesn't mean that you're giving them clearance to do it again. It doesn't mean when you forgive someone, they remain or they maintain the privilege of being in that space with you. It means you've forgiven them and they can go on their way and they go with peace. However they decide, because sometimes when we do things, as an offender, when you offend someone, you also, with somebody with reasonable intellect, cognition, you would feel some guilt when you do something. So there's also forgiveness on your part. You offend someone, you do something to someone. You should ordinarily, if you're not a psychopath, you will feel some guilt. And sometimes the only way you can get rid of that guilt, because it's not just the person forgiving you, but you forgiving yourself. Sometimes you need something as much as up to prayer and seeking God's face to forgive yourself for some things you've done. And that's why forgiveness is so important. You'll find, people that talk about, their childhood, things they might have experienced with parents, abuse. When they don't forgive, not only does it follow them around, but it actually dictates how they interact with the environment, dictates how they approach people, how they approach things, and how they are in their relationships. So that crime that was committed against you is now perpetrating and continuing with everything you do, and how you walk, and how you talk, and how you relate with people, and how you trust on and how you don't trust. It's still permeating because you haven't forgiven, because you can't heal without the forgiveness. Once you forgive, and then the healing process begins, but you cannot heal without the forgiveness. And I feel a lot of people, they get stuck in the phase of anger, and so they don't even get to the point of forgiveness and healing. And if you haven't healed, you can't survive and move on from something that's happened to you. And this is it's in everything. You see it, as parents, I'm a parent, children don't come with a manual. There's not this instruction booklet. When I pushed on my kids, they didn't get, when the baby came out, and the placenta did not contain an instruction manual. It says, okay, you know what, this is what you're going to do until da-da-da-da. No. So we do go along, figuring it as we go along. Things are different for everyone. Some do okay, but we do to some extent as parents. Honestly, we probably do cause some damage or some traumas because we don't know what we're doing. We can seek God's face, we can do all these things, but we still kind of cause different things. And so there may be some situations, if you haven't kind of had that discussion with the child, between your parent-child, that conversation, where they may be carrying some hurts and some resentment into adulthood. But the truth is, when you've gone to the point as an adult, it's now your responsibility. I'm sorry. It's now your responsibility to take on that role, to heal from whatever trauma you may have experienced as a child. There's no excusing poor parenting by any means. But at this point, the aim is forgiveness and to heal, so you can move on and continue to, become victorious in your life, to excel. Not that you can't excel with these seeds, but in that area where that hurt is, you can't excel in that area. You're going to be carrying, it's like walking around with a wound inside. If that wound hasn't healed, you can't use that part properly. So once again, I'm going to say that I believe that, children who might have had some things happen to them in their childhood, if they don't they get to a point where they are adults, it's now your responsibility as an adult to heal. It doesn't take away the fault of what your parent did, but it does help you heal so you can move on. So if you have children, you're not carrying that through your children or carrying that through into another relationship. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're forgiven. And once again, that forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Because once you forgive them, you can move on and then heal. And when you've healed, you can learn from it. When you've healed from something, when you've overcome something, you now have a testimony. So you're not only helping yourself, you can be a point of reference for other people, so other people can gain. So that pain wasn't in vain, or else you keep living that pain day in, day out. And then on top of that, years of pain with no forgiveness becomes bitterness. And bitterness doesn't look good on anyone, male or female. It's like, I love analogies. It's like, whatever your favorite dish is. Right now, I'm trying to do the keto thing, so I'm going to say it's going to be a salad with salmon. And for me, I love sparkling water. So, it's like, you've got a great meal, sparkling water. But I'm going to eat this meal in a bathroom where someone's just had a bowel movement. It spoils the whole experience. So it will taint everything you do if you don't have that forgiveness element in what you're doing. You see other situations, relationships. And that's a big thing. You see a lot of females, they're going through relationships. They've had, prior relationships where they went in innocently and they were deceived and they were cheated and treated badly. And, different things happen. And sometimes they never really get an explanation or an understanding as to why me? Why did it happen to me? What's wrong with me? I see other people, this is a Nigerian thing, I'm gonna tell you. And when you see other people that have great relationships, you'll be like, after all, do they have two heads? Why they got it right and I got it wrong? First step, you've been through something. Once again, you sit down, reflect before you jump into the next boat. Sit down, reflect. What part did you play? So I think for relationships, it's like two things you want to do. Forgive yourself for being wounded enough or hurt enough to not see the red flags and to enter that relationship, and then to forgive the other person. So there are two processes I believe you have to do with a relationship. Because if you walked in willingly, if you're kidnapped, I'm not talking about you. But if you walked into that relationship willingly, kind of throwing those red flags to the side, because intuition is a wonderful thing, but we do have a tendency to sometimes talk ourselves out of good sense. So you have two things you have to do in that situation. Forgive yourself for picking wrong, and then forgive the other person for treating you disrespectfully. And once you forgive and you heal, there's a part of you that won't allow yourself to receive or accept that kind of behavior again. Because honestly, we give people permission to treat us the way they do. If we don't give them permission to do that, they can't do that. So as females, we give them permission to mistreat us because we allow it to continue. We can walk out. No situation is dire. You can walk away. Of course, there's case-to-case basis. There's a timing. I'm not saying walk out when Lola says walk out, no, but timing. Situations with abuse, everyone says it's timing. So that's how forgiveness works in relationships, and that's, relationships with a partner. Relationships with siblings. You see siblings, or you hear about siblings who haven't talked in years for some dumb reason or another. And not to call their reasoning dumb, but just, sometimes when you're on the outside and you observe certain things, you're like, that doesn't make sense. Let it go. But if you're in it, you're like riled up. You're like, nah, gee, this person, they wrong me. I'm going, they want, blood. But the thing is, it just keeps you stuck there, and you don't grow there. And sometimes when you've had things, not even sometimes, a lot of the time, when someone has wronged you, let's say this thing began at childhood, when this person's talking to an adult, the reasoning they're still using is like they were stuck right there from the time it happened. They're frozen. And so their reasoning doesn't even make sense to you, the person listening, but to them, it's crystal. So, I say again, this is where forgiveness comes into it. Work, I think, is easier. Work is an easier thing to do where, because we all have situations at work where someone is they want to try you. Then you be like, I'm not the one. But, you have this code switching, you keep it professional. Sometimes, you choose your battles and let some of that stuff go. Because you never want to be labeled as that one, as that crazy one. So, just to kind of wrap it all together, I will most likely have another part on this video where I'm kind of addressing what kind of made me think about this, but I don't want to talk on it until it's confirmed and other people have said yeah. But I would say that the key, or one of the keys to peace, one of the keys to success, one of the keys to growth is forgiveness. And it's not just forgiving that person, but forgive yourself. And it sounds all easy. Just I forgive you. No. You can say the words as much as you want. If you don't feel it right here, then it's not real. So I think that's where me as a Christian can believe that, seeking in the face of God, and that sounds all, woo-wee. No. That means you read the Bible, you can kind of think on it. You kind of meditate. They use meditate on those words and pray about it. And there'll be a clarity, I promise you, there'll be a clarity that will just make sense to you one day. You'll be like, yeah, I forgive you. And I forgive you, like I said, doesn't mean we can break bread together. Because if that's something harmful, if they've got harmful, toxic behavior, you don't need that in your atmosphere. You don't need that in your airspace. You don't have to have it in your airspace. But once you forgive them, they're not living your mind anymore. They're not living rent-free. You're not thinking about them. You're not making decisions to avoid that. You're just living your life as you should. Fulfilled, thriving. So, guys, it's been a pleasure to kind of briefly touch on forgiveness. And like I said, I'm looking at doing a second video. But of course, please share your experiences, and I can also or your thoughts or your ideas or your perceptions, what you think forgiveness is. And I can kind of combine that when I do the second video. But thank you for watching to the end. And once again, please don't forget to like this video, make a comment, of course, to tell me what you think and what your experiences are, and subscribe. I'd love to have some more subscribers. Thank you, everyone. Take care.